Welcome to the SC21 Change Agent channel once more. My name's Pete Thornton Smith, an associate of Paul Brown's, and Paul's asked me to run you through this presentation on AS9100. Now, SC21 encourages suppliers to adopt AS9100, but it is no longer mandatory. It used to be, but that's changed. However, how any company within the aerospace supply chain can operate without this, I'm not really sure. You need a robust 9001 system in place already, because on top of that, AS9100 is going to require the following: an understanding and use of clear definitions for special processes, critical items, key characteristics, as well as risk. Now, risk, most people can get their head around that, but special processes, well, these are certain types of processes that might be at the limit of machinery, people or processes. So you're not quite sure what the outcome's going to be. You know, you've not done it before. Critical items, okay, in aerospace, safety critical is easily understood. And key characteristics, now these are obviously important parameters in relation to whatever it is you're producing, and will variation in what you're producing be an issue? You may be in spec, but a variation around that could result in an issue. You need the addition of specific QA requirements requested by customers in the system. A lot of companies have to work to certain documentation that the customers supply, or even a purchasing spec. So that actually needs mentioning within your system. You need a change control system which includes a response from recipients. You can't just issue documents and assume they've replaced old copies if that's how you operate. Have they read it? Have they understood it? You need something back to demonstrate that that is the case. You need to be able to control work if for temporary or permanent transfers of business and production activities you have to move, maybe within a group of companies that you're a part of, or it could be even to a subcontractor. It makes sense that you've obviously got to keep control of the jobs. You now need to incorporate risk management throughout the business. Okay, so whatever aspect you're looking at, you know, if we make a change, it could be, you know, a material, it could be a supplier, it could be a location. What's the risk? And you need to demonstrate that you've just run that by people to make sure you're not creating a problem for yourself. Configuration management, certainly if you're into assemblies, needs to be addressed. And project management, that could be relevant if you're part of the bigger picture, shall we say. And if you fall down on your contribution, then a bigger project is going to suffer. You need enhanced design controls. You need a clear scope of approval for the suppliers and subcontractors that you're going to use. A regular review and action when targets are not met. You need additional information to make your requirements very clear on purchase orders. You need a clear identification prior to full verification at goods inwards in case goods need recalling. That's a bit of an odd one really, because they're actually going to allow you to move material into the supply chain, your processes, even though you haven't fully checked it out. But they need the backstop that you can recall it if once your testing is completed you find there's an issue. Full accountability of material issued and produced. Sounds obvious that, doesn't it? But you've really got to be able to say if this was the quantity of raw material going in, you can account for the finished product, scrap, obvious wastage, whatever, so that people aren't unsure as to just how much goods have gone into the supply chain. Oh yes, prevention, detection and removal of foreign bodies. That's very important in aerospace, so you must demonstrate that you've taken all necessary precautions. Monitor and control of utilities that impact on properties. Alright, so if any of those have a direct impact on what it is you're doing. You just need to make sure that they're under control. Again, should be fairly obvious, but in terms of people doing work, clear criteria for workmanship, clear responsibility to approve process changes, and confirmation that no adverse conditions will be created. You can't just have everybody changing a process route just because they feel like it. So who are your nominated people? Obviously in a planning function. Validation of equipment used to automate production, particularly, software-driven machinery. Can you make sure that that software is going to do what you want it to do? And can you demonstrate through your records that you've validated it? Clear requirements on post-delivery support. You may be doing installs on site, so that's got to be well documented as to how that's going to work. Control of acceptance authority, things like passwords, electronic signatures, stamps. Make sure you've got a list of who those people are, and you can put together a process that clearly makes sure that you don't breach the integrity in terms of that authority. Preservation of product and stock, make sure clearly that there's no deterioration going to happen. Positive recall of instruments before calibration, alright? Don't leave it to chance, don't leave it to a chart or the operator, right? Remembering that this particular month that micrometer's got to go in. You've got to do something, as it says, positively. Define processes for collecting data for customer satisfaction and improvement plans to overcome deficiencies. So everybody loves this, customer satisfaction, the dreaded questionnaire, but whatever other techniques you're going to adopt, right, just make sure it's clearly stated what you're going to do. And if you don't meet the targets, a plan to make sure you take action. Determine whether quality management system issues ever create product issues as you go through your audits and corrective actions. If you're going to do a sampling plan, that's fine, but make sure it's statistically valid. Don't just pick a number out of the air and say, well, we'll do 25%. Right? Depends on the throughput, obviously, of the items, the material that you are assessing. Control of product release prior to completion of testing. Now, this is a bit like the goods inwards one, isn't it? So if you release something prior to the testing being completed, again, you've got to have that ability to do a recall. Non-conforming product, that's well understood from 9001, but now you've got to actually document which people you are giving the authority to verdict these forms and why, on what basis. If you do create scrap, then you've got to permanently mark or destroy it to make sure there's no risk of it going back into the supply chain. Now that's from the standard, but just listen to this. There are requirements coming out of 9101D, which is the standard that the auditors are following in order to look at a company for AS9100. Now then, on-time delivery and quality metrics over 12 months, that's the minimum for customers, and corrective action when you don't achieve that performance that you've set, all right? So this is the chicken and egg situation. If you're a company with no aerospace customers, but you want AS9100 in order to get into that market, you're not likely to have 12 months data from aerospace customers. So what you have to do is get your top 5 customers by turnover and make sure you've got, albeit historical data, for on-time delivery and quality metrics, and a clear path on corrective actions when you don't hit those targets. Don't just say, oh well, we didn't hit it this month, let's try better next month. You've actually got to start and perhaps after 2 or 3 instances have a clear path to put it right. But that can trip people up, that, because they say, well, we've no aerospace customers. Worse still, they haven't got the data. You must have that, that's non-negotiable. Pair reports, process effectiveness assessment report. These metrics are for the major processes, and this is within paragraph 7. You define what the major processes are, and you decide to set a metric or two, and that's what will be audited. The auditor will actually produce a pair report. For example, you might have a brilliant goods inward system, because what this is coming round to saying is it's no longer good enough to have a procedure, a process that's identified, documented and under control. That's not good enough anymore. You need the fourth element, which is it effective? As I say, goods inward, you could have the best system that's ever been written, but it takes you 8 days to get stuff on stock, from the lorry arriving to you unloading, inspecting, marking, locating and updating whatever stock system you have. Alright, so that's not good enough. Salespeople can't sell stuff until it's on stock. Quotations, again, could be brilliant what you've written, but it takes you 5 days to turn a quote round. Customers are screaming for 48 hours, and possibly your bosses as well. Very powerful and the right way to go, because it has to be effective. It's got to be adding value. Now, this isn't set in stone, but with aerospace, they would expect to see a visual system, right, of your choice, clearly showing process, sequence and interaction, and this goes for how you write your procedures as well. Alright, the days of the long tome of a text written bullet list in Word are long gone. So whilst, as I say, there's nothing demanding that it must be visual, I would strongly advise that you do it this way. So whether it's flowcharts, turtle diagrams, whatever, the choice is yours, but make it visual. And also remember, you need to appoint a person to administer the OASIS records. That database has everybody connected in the supply chain for aerospace on it. If you get AS9100, you will go on it. All your suppliers and subcontractors should be on it, but you need somebody to run it. So there you have a quick overview. Now, for further information and guidance, do contact either Paul Brown for SC21 issues, Paul Brown at icepartnership.com. For AS9100, I'll happily help you, Pete Thornton Smith at icepartnership.com. And please subscribe to this channel, because there's lots of other good videos on here, and leave feedback. Tell us what you think. Point us in the direction for other content that you'd like us to cover. We're more than happy to do that. And also check out our blog on WordPress, SC21 Change Agent.wordpress.com. Lots of good articles there from Paul and myself as well. So hope that's been of use, and we'll talk to you next time.